When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious...
Most Sonic fans know the story behind Sonic CD, its development, and why it took until Gems Collection or the remaster for it to really get noticed by the masses. But for those who aren't in the loop, here's how it all went down. After Sonic 1's success, a sequel was, of course, in demand, but the game kinda ended up getting two sequels. Sonic CD was in development at the same time as Sonic 2. Sonic 2 was being developed in America by the Sonic team members who moved there, and Sonic CD was developed by the team that stayed in Japan. CD is thought to have started as a Sega CD upgrade of Sonic 2, which originally had time travel elements, but the team wanted to add their own elements like new level themes and re-implementing the time travel feature that got cut from Sonic 2. So the game became its own thing. I think the mixed development cycle becomes evident just by looking at the game's sprites. They reused the Sonic 1 sprites as the basis for the graphics. It's not one-to-one though, because they did add new graphics like for the Super Peel-Out, the spring animation, and new balancing art. Sonic CD would release in 1993 onto the Sega CD, or Mega CD outside the US, the short-lived add-on to the Sega Genesis that added a CD drive, enhanced PCM sound chips, and extra graphics capabilities such as full motion video playback and sprite scaling akin to the Super Nintendo. Why did it fail? Well, for starters, it cost $300, it needed its own power supply, and its game library fluctuated between straight Genesis ports with CD audio and maybe some extra content, and bad FMV games. Those aren't games, they're Laserdisc press the right button games, just with way worse video quality. Unless you're Dragon's Lair, you won't be able to get it right. Wait, didn't Dragon's Lair get ported to the Sega CD too? Anyway, out of the shallow waters of the Sega CD library, Sonic CD was the best one of the bunch, and the best-selling game on the Sega CD worldwide.
Are we surprised?
No.
Even though the game sold fairly well, despite the Sega CD's Sega CD-ness, the game was for a long time known as a forgotten Sonic classic, and considered one of the best Sonic games nobody played. Because the Sega CD flopped, to say the least, Sonic CD was ported to Windows 95 in 1996, becoming the first of a handful of Sonic games to be ported to PC. I won't show this version too much since it's nearly identical to the Sega CD version. It just runs better, has shorter loading times, has lower quality sound effects, and requires patches to run on Windows XP. That version of the game would then be ported to the GameCube for Sonic Gems Collection in 2005, but I do not own a copy of that. I did play this version at a friend's house once, but only out of curiosity. Go figure, I was more interested in Sonic the Fighters than Sonic R, and he was too. The game was supposed to be part of Sonic Mega Collection a few years prior, but the development team working on the collection had trouble emulating the Sega CD properly. Yet the official statement was that the disc didn't have enough space to fit Sonic CD. So Gems Collection was the last time Sonic CD was in the spotlight until 2009. A Sonic fan game developer named Christian Whitehead released a video showcasing a proof of concept of Sonic CD running on his iPod Touch. This wasn't a port or emulator, but rather a recreation based on his Retro Engine, a toolkit for making 16-bit style games for modern platforms. Needless to say, it turned heads. When I saw the video, I was flabbergasted. I got an iPod Touch for Christmas about a year prior, so I was in the prime demographic for this kind of a port. Then we heard nothing. Fast forward to 2011, and Sega announces that sure enough, Sonic CD was coming to the iPhone and iPad thanks to Christian Whitehead and his Retro Engine. But that wasn't all. The game was also coming to Android, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Steam. Sonic CD hit the mainstream at last. Christian Whitehead would also go on to partner with another fan developer named Stealth to create mobile versions of Sonic 1 and 2, and he would partner with Pagoda West later to create 2017's smash hit Sonic Mania. Anyway, for most of this video, I'll be playing a decompiled version of the 2011 PC release, but I have also recorded the iOS version running on my iPhone 11, the 1996 PC version with some compatibility patches, and the original Sega CD version running in an emulator. I will go over version differences near the end of the video, so let's begin. 1 month out of every year, a little celestial body called Little Planet passes by Never Lake. Sonic is on his way to see the planet swing by while being followed by Amy Rose, making her first appearance in this game. When he gets there, Little Planet is chained up to a nearby mountain bearing a very familiar caricature. Sonic wastes no time climbing up the chain to free Little Planet from Dr. Eggman's clutches, but he has another problem to deal with. Amy, who followed him all the way to Little Planet, is suddenly kidnapped by Eggman's latest creation, Metal Sonic, also making his first appearance in this game. So not only does Sonic have to take back Little Planet from Dr. Eggman, he also has to rescue Amy from Metal Sonic. Dr. Eggman had sought after the Time Stones, 7 magical gems that can alter the fabric of time to the user's whim. Eggman has traveled to the past and placed robot generators throughout every zone on Little Planet. Sonic also needs to go to the past and destroy these generators in order to ensure a good future for each zone. So yes, time travel is a major theme in this game. You'll be doing a lot of it, especially near the beginning of the game. Most of the bosses are against Dr. Eggman's various machines, but when Sonic gets to Stardust Speedway, the second to last zone of the game, Eggman pits Metal Sonic against him in a foot race. Sonic promptly wins the race because, nobody's faster than Sonic, right? Afterwards, Sonic infiltrates Eggman's fortress in Metallic Madness and puts a stop to the Mad Doctor's plans once and for all, bringing Amy back to their home planet while Little Planet's chains come off. The game has a good and bad ending depending on whether you succeed in destroying Eggman's machines or collecting the time stones. If you can destroy all the generators, Little Planet will be completely free until Sonic 4 Episode 2. If not, Eggman gets away with the time stones and the chains reappear. Once you get into the game, it feels familiar if you've played any classic Sonic game before this. However, the first thing you'll notice is how different the level design is. Sonic 2's main focus was on keeping the speed going and sometimes punishing the player for not keeping up. Sonic CD, on the other hand, focuses on exploration. The levels are much more vertical and often have their own set piece or gimmick for the player to mess around with. For instance, Palmtree Panic has these rotating platforms and pseudo 3D loops. Quartz Quadrant has conveyor belts, Tidal Tempest has water, and Collision Chaos has bumpers and flippers and, well, chaos. Sonic's moveset remains the same as previous entries. You can run really fast, curl into a ball when you jump, and spin around to destroy enemies as you go. This game also introduces the Spin Dash. Well, sorta. The Spin Dash that Sonic 2 introduced became the standard, where you can instantly release it, but also charge it up before releasing it. In Sonic CD, however, the Spin Dash works differently. You have to wait until the spin completely charges up before you can release. That kinda defeats the purpose of the Spin Dash, I think. To balance this out, the developers added another move, the Super Peel Out. The Peel Out is like the Spin Dash, except you charge a running start, and it doesn't take as long to charge. You also take off a little bit faster, but because you're running and not spinning, you risk hitting a badnik on the way. If you play the 2011 version of Sonic CD, you are given the option to use either the original Spin Dash or Sonic 2's Spin Dash, which is much nicer. It also makes it easier to gauge your speed when preparing for time travel. Speaking of which, the main mechanic of this game that stands Sonic CD apart from the others is time travel. In each level, there are signs that read past and future. When Sonic runs past one of these and maintains his running speed for a few seconds, he is transported either forwards or backwards in time. Remember how I said Eggman traveled to the past and placed robot generators all over Little Planet? Well, what you're supposed to do is travel to the past in each level and destroy the robot generator. If you do so, the future will be bright and colorful, with nature and machines getting along. Fail to do so, however, and the future will be trashed, polluted, and all around not a pleasant place to be in. Each zone has 3 acts, with the third act being dedicated to a boss battle and always taking place in the future. This way, it acts as either a reward for destroying the generators, or a punishment for failing to do so. The robot generators are usually hidden in a somewhat out-of-reach place. They are visible in the present, so if you notice it while you're looking for time travel posts, you can think about how to come back to this spot once you're in the past. As I stated before, the levels are built with exploration in mind, so it does limit the amount of open spaces sometimes where you can time travel, but careful application of the game's mechanics as well as dedicated spring-enclosed areas can provide somewhat quick means of time travel. As well, the levels all have a goal sign near the end, so you can know when to stop and go back before the camera locks you to the end. The developers have cited Back to the Future as the inspiration for Sonic CD's time travel, so I guess Sonic's main running speed is 88 miles per hour. Naoto Oshima even said that he wanted it to work just like it did in the movies, where once Sonic executed the time warp, he'd instantaneously appear in the past or future. However, the Sega CD hardware just wouldn't have been able to load the data fast enough, so the team couldn't pull it off. If constant time traveling sounds too tedious for you, you can play the game as you would Sonic 1 by collecting 50 rings and jumping into a giant ring at the end of the level. You are then transported to a special stage. Special stages in classic Sonic games have always been about showcasing the true technological power of the system it was on. Sonic CD's special stages adopt this notion, showing how the Sega CD can rotate and scale sprites like the Super Nintendo's Mode 7 in a maze-like setting to hunt for a time stone. You can clear these stages by destroying a bunch of UFOs. Each UFO has a different item in it. Some give you rings that serve no purpose except to increase your score at the end, and some give you speed shoes to make the journey go a little bit faster. The stage itself has traps such as bumpers to push you around, springs to launch you in the air, speed boosters to launch you somewhere else, fans to make you float in the air for a little bit, grass which slows you down, and water, which not only slows you down as well, but will make your timer run down faster too. Oh yeah, you're on a time limit in this stage, so you have to destroy all the UFOs before it reaches 0. If you dip below 20 seconds, another UFO shows up in the middle of the map that grants you an extra 30 seconds if you destroy it. Once you collect all the time stones, you are always guaranteed a good future. This means you no longer need to travel to the past, so now you can start exploring the future in each level. Once you can freely go to the good future, it makes later levels much more enjoyable. In the good future, there are no enemies and some stage hazards are eliminated, such as the electric conduits being turned off in Wacky Workbench. It's a much better experience overall. And speaking of stage-based gimmicks, let's go over each zone individually. Let's begin with Palmtree Panic. Oh shoot, I forgot I ordered a pizza. Don't go away, Sonic.
A few minutes later.
Alright, got my extra cheese and black olive pizza here, let's... It's a nice opening stage, laying the groundwork for the exploration the game will require of you as you move forward. In the present day, Amy greets you at the end of Act 1, running up to you and hugging you until you jump off of her. There are some fun parts here, like the tunnels akin to Green Hills, the giant 3D loop-de-loop at the beginning, and this one part where you run behind the waterfall. That's awesome. When you travel to the past here, you're likely to find the other optional item to destroy. Eggman has also placed Metal Sonic holograms throughout Little Planet to scare the animals away. When you destroy it, the animals all come back, but it's not required to create a good future. In the good future, the animals all roam around anyway. The past is very primitive, with a lot more vegetation and the hidden blocks of this level being visible. The bad future, of course, is trashed and polluted with machines all over the place, but the good future is bright and cheerful, flowing with water, and the machines and nature are playing nice with each other. The boss of this level is one of the most pathetic excuses for a boss I've ever seen. And I played Mega Man 4. Normally you're supposed to let Eggman walk forward and backward before he pulls back his bumper arms, then you can hit him, but if you grab this invincibility box beforehand and run ahead of him, this boss is a big fat joke. Next up is Collision Chaos. There couldn't be a more perfect name for this level because dear goodness you'll be bouncing up and down and all around just trying to go forward. There's also these glass spheres that kinda act like one-hit bumpers. In the past, a lot of the structures and machines haven't been built yet, but there's still just enough to send you flying in the opposite direction. As well, this rotating cylinder of platforms is turned off, so I'm guessing it's not finished yet. In the present and future, it rotates, creating the challenge of getting on the right platform at the right time. Speaking of the future, the bad future is dark, polluted, and desolate, with more traps and spikes to give you grief. But the good future is more like the present, cheerful and still chaotic. The boss of this level is a pinball machine made by Eggman himself. Eggman shoots an orb to bump Sonic off course, but he also has to deal with the glass spheres I mentioned earlier. Make it to the top, and bump Eggman's machine up to the ceiling to get past him. Or on the Sega CD version, you can just do this. After that beautiful mess, we have Tidal Tempest. No, not that Tempest. Tidal Tempest is basically this game's labyrinth zone. It's slow, it's cramped, it's got swimming spine-shooting robots and water bug robots and bumblebees? Not seeing the connection here. If you're playing this on the Sega CD or Windows 95, it's even slower because both the Spin Dash and Super Peel Out are nerfed underwater. However, you will find plenty of opportunities to time travel because above water, especially in Act 1, there are lots of open areas where Sonic can just run and jump. There are also plenty of enclosed spring sections here, so time travel will not be an issue. The past is still cave-like. The background hasn't really been enclosed by temple ruins yet because, well, the temple hasn't been made yet. In the bad future, everything is mechanized and the water is this awful shade of purple. Trust me, you don't want to drink any of that stuff. However, in the good future, the water is clean and the electronics here keep it that way. It's nice. The boss of this level is the longest hurry up and wait game I've seen in a video game since probably Rayman Origins. Eggman surrounds his airship with a rain of bubbles that you can grab to breathe, but he will shoot at you every so often, so breathe with caution. Once the barrier of bubbles is whittled down to 1 or 2, he goes down in one hit, draining the water and letting you pass through. Following Tidal Tempest is Quartz Quadrant. You'll probably notice by now that all of the zone names are alliterations. No other Sonic game pulls this off, and I really want to see Sega try that alliteration in Sonic levels in a future game. Anyway, Quartz Quadrant is a mining level set in caves, which becomes more evident when you travel to the past. There are conveyor belts everywhere, as well as chutes to send Sonic all over the place. Overall, it's a movement-centric level. It's not completely built yet in the past, so you can still see pure caves in the background, but the future is much more mechanized, no matter which one you go to. It just gives a more menacing feel in the bad future compared to the good. The boss of this level is one of the game's more interesting ones. Eggman blocks your path, so you need to run on this treadmill to wear down his machine enough for him to flee. While you're doing this, Eggman will drop spike balls on you that split into copies, so make sure you give yourself enough distance to avoid them. Once his machine is worn down enough, Eggman will run away, letting you get a move on. The next level is Wacky Workbench. I'm just gonna say it now, this is my least favorite level in the game. If you thought Collision Chaos was unbearable with how many times it sends you backwards, you're going to hate this level as much as I do. The floor has this bouncy energy stuff that sends Sonic skyrocketing whenever you touch it. There are moving platforms near the bottom that can help you safely get across, but if you miss it, it'll take you a good minute to land on another one. Besides that, there are tunnels everywhere, moving parts that look like they should crush you but just push you under instead, okay? Exhaust vents that freeze Sonic upon touching it, and electrical conduits everywhere. A certain section of these conduits will activate every so often in the level, and of course, it hurts Sonic. Nothing is more frustrating than being bounced up by the bouncy floor only to hit an active conduit. Ugh, that's why I hate this level so much. Act 2 also has these figure 8 turbines that allow for easy time travel when you find them. However, if you get all the time stones before coming here, you won't need to. In the past, the factory isn't quite done being built yet, so you can still see the mountain range it's being built by. Despite not being finished though, the conduits are in full operation, so watch out. The bad future is everything that made the present so frustrating and much more. So please, 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 if you have all the time stones by this point, go to the good future. It's much easier without as many badniks around, plus the conduits are turned off. Yes! You no longer need to worry about accidentally bumping into an active conduit. The boss of this level once again requires waiting. Hit Eggman's drill to make him move upwards, jump on one of the rocks that fall down, and do the same thing 2 more times. Once you hit him the 3rd time, his machine falls down, giving you an opening to escape his factory of terror. Now that all the bouncing's done, we move on to Stardust Speedway, the second to last level. When people complain about the level design of this game, Stardust Speedway is usually the level that comes to mind, if not Wacky Workbench, because sheesh! I will admit, it's not the easiest level to traverse, but not because it's designed to challenge your skills that you've developed thus far. It's trying not to hit walls, slopes, or harmful obstacles that you can't see coming. These launchers that send you either in a predetermined or random direction, the slow-moving bugs that you can't really see coming until it's too late, and whoa, I'm getting dizzy just looking at this. The past is primitive, the future's polluted with lightning in the background, and the good future's purple with a green ocean. Okay. Not much changes to warrant time traveling this time. I will say though the generators are much easier to find in this level than others. The boss of this round is Metal Sonic. Yeah, it's finally time to kick this robot's chassis. The boss is basically,
we'll settle this with a 10-step foot race.
Whoever reaches the end of the level first slams the door on the other, and Eggman isn't too far behind with an instant death laser. Every few seconds Metal will attack based on where Sonic is compared to him. If Sonic is ahead of Metal, Metal will dash forward like a fireball with the goal of ramming into Sonic. If Sonic's behind, Metal will electrify himself and slow down to try to hit Sonic. If Metal slams the door, Sonic is at Eggman's mercy. If Sonic slams the door, Metal is destroyed before Eggman even gets there, and the camera pans to show Amy tied up. She is rescued at last. Wait, it's not over? Metallic Madness can be a slog sometimes, likely because it's based on Scrap Brain from Sonic 1. The rooms are small, you'll be mere pixels away from death most of the time thanks to spinning and disappearing platforms, spikes placed in areas Sonic's most likely to land, and sprains everywhere! Good stinking luck finding the robot generators here. The past doesn't help much, I think it's just as dangerous as the present. In fact, I don't think the difficulty, or anything major really, changes at all when traveling in time. That may be a first. The present is slightly green, the past is blue, the good future's also blue, and the bad future is tan. That's all. Except for the rotating foreground to background platform here that only exists once, and this shrinking beam that only exists once, and this kinda walker thing that, you guessed it, only exists once. They really threw things at a wall and used what stuck, huh? Anyway, the final boss is Eggman with rotating blocks? I don't really know what those are. Anyway, in the original Sega CD version, it is actually impossible to hit Eggman the first time without getting hurt. But the 2011 version added just a tiny little opening in the hitbox for you to hit him the first time. Not that I was able to do it this time, but trust me, it's there. Anyway, it just gets easier and easier as you keep knocking blocks off the machine. Just dodge his attacks and hit him when he's open. That's all. Once you defeat him, the fortress begins to explode, and you rescue Amy from the wreckage. Woo! Now that the game's over, you can explore what the rest of the game has to offer. And by that I mean Time Attack. Sonic CD is the first game in the series to feature a Time Attack mode, where you can record your fastest times in the levels. Each level starts with a 5-minute record, with your overall time being 105 minutes. There is no way Sonic's that slow, so get running! The levels are slightly changed to limit distractions, such as removing time travel posts and extra life boxes. You can save up to 3 of your best times in a level, and the fastest time is counted for the overall total. When you bring the total time down, you may eventually notice a few extra options in the menu. First, if you can get your total time under 37:27:57, you unlock the DA Garden. It's like an interactive sound test where you can play around with the rotatable sprite of Little Planet. The time period of the song you choose affects how Little Planet looks, and you can watch Eggman, Metal Sonic, and even Tails fly around as you goof around. That's pretty cool. Next, if you get your time down to 30:21:5, you can access a special stage time attack. Unlike the main game, the timer counts up instead of down, and water won't mess up your time. That should make it easier to plan routes to get all the UFOs as fast as possible. Lastly, if you get it down to 25:46:12, you unlock visual mode, basically a movie selector, where you can watch any of the animated cutscenes in the game. I'll cover those later, but it also includes a pencil test from the creation of these movies. I love seeing work-in-progress animations because, as an animator myself, it gives me a better idea of what other people's thought processes are when animating. That's all the unlockables for the original game, but the 2011 version has 2 more. Get your special stage time down to 5 minutes to unlock the sound test. This is a menu much like the previous Sonic game sound test as opposed to the DA Garden. This sound test hides a great many secrets on its own that I'll cover in just a bit. Finally, get your special stage time down to 4 minutes to unlock a stage select. This I feel is especially important because the save selector does not let you select the stage after you beat the game. You can select any level and any time period to start in, so if you want to know what a good or bad feature looks like, or start in the past to just go get the robot generator, you can do that. On the subject of the sound test, if you enter certain numbers in the FM, PCM, or DA categories, you can unlock hidden features. Here's one of the most adorable Sonic you've ever seen. Oh, it is so cute. Here's Tails reminding you that he wasn't in the original Sega CD version. Here's a werewolf Sonic? It's not what I thought the werehog looked like. Next up, Sonic's a rapper and Eggman's asking if he can kick it. Kick what? Kick the cheat? Next, here's that picture. Look, I don't think fun is infinite, buddy. I thought infinite was weak. Anyway, here's a few exclusive ones from the 2011 version, showing off cut levels because they would have made the remake a bit unfaithful to the original. If I recall correctly, this Desert Dazzle artwork would be repurposed into Mirage Saloon from Sonic Mania. The last one I'll show off is a cool bonus. Another special stage! This time, you get to peer into Eggman's cold glasses-covered eyes as you play a tricky challenge. You don't get anything for beating it, but it's cool to see another special stage outside of the main game. And that's a wrap on the secrets. Now let's jump back to the cutscenes. Both an opening and ending cutscene were animated in a joint effort by Studio Junio and Toei Animation. The absolutely iconic opening cutscene follows Sonic as he approaches Little Planet, only to find it chained up by Eggman. This animation totally embodies what Sonic was about in the 90s. He's doing spins and flips and all sorts of cool stuff on his way to Little Planet. He's drilling through solid rocks, launching himself off an oddly ramp-shaped rock. This is Sonic at his finest. The ending cutscene shows Sonic rescuing Amy from the crumbling metallic madness after he defeats Eggman. The two land safely back on their homeworld, and depending on whether you created all good futures or not, either Little Planet will disappear, or Eggman will fly off with the time stones. Afterwards, a montage of Sonic navigating through various levels throughout the game plays next to the credits, which is really cool. I heard that the Gems collection nixed the credits entirely and just played the animations, which I think is a bit odd, but if we're being honest here, nobody was watching the credits anyway. At the end of the credits, if you created good futures, flower seeds will fall onto the planet, spreading love and harmony everywhere. However, if you don't, Little Planet reappears exactly where it was before, chained back up to the mountain. I feel really bad for the Sega CD owners here though, because the Sega CD absolutely butchered the cutscenes. From what I can gather, the Sega Genesis had a 256 color palette, but could only display around 60 colors at a time normally. However, because of the bottleneck from the Sega CD's connection, videos only get 16 to 32 colors on screen at an abysmal frame rate. It does get a bit better in the credits when the video crops itself to the side. It can run a little bit smoother because it's smaller. Since I forgot to write a segue, let's talk about the music. Sonic CD's music is an interesting topic because the game has 2 completely separate soundtracks. The original music that I've been playing so far is the Japanese soundtrack. which originally came with the Japanese and European versions of the game. The soundtrack, composed by Naofumi Hataya and Masafumi Ogata, is upbeat, full of prominent melodies and techno sweetness. The opening for this soundtrack is called Sonic You Can Do Anything, but everyone just calls it Toot Toot Sonic Warrior. The ending theme is called Cosmic Eternity. Both songs are meant to be uplifting and heart-pumping to prepare you for not just the game, but any task in life. I say each song fits with the level it's in, despite not really shifting genres. Each time zone for each level has a different arrangement of the level's main theme. The present is akin to what a normal Sonic level would sound like in this style. The past music is more primitive, but honestly has some of my favorite songs in the soundtrack. The bad future is bleak and desolate, making you not want to listen more, and the good future is beautiful and charming, giving you good vibes throughout. When the game came to the US though, the marketing team must have thought American kids weren't ready for Toot Toot Sonic Warrior, so they commissioned Spencer Nilsson and David Young to compose an entirely new soundtrack for the game. That is, except for the past music. See, every other song in the game is a CD audio track, which means they simply have to burn different music to the CD, and the game won't know the difference. However, the past music was sequenced in a format made to show off the Sega CD's PCM chips. It's chiptune. Because the songs were sequenced, the American team didn't have enough time to even attempt to replace them. A caveat of this is that, for example, you have a chill, atmospheric rendition of Collision Chaos for the present, and then all of a sudden the past music goes nuts on you. The American soundtrack also has a new opening and ending theme, Sonic Boom. No, not that Sonic Boom. It's another motivational song, but styled after the music that was popular during the late 80s and early 90s in America. Despite the circumstances that led to the American soundtrack's recreation, I actually like both. The Japanese soundtrack is still my favorite because of a higher like to dislike ratio, but the American soundtrack is no slouch. Palmtree Panic, for instance, is nostalgic for me because, as an American, I played the American version of the game first. The themes for Stardust Speedway's Futures are amazing, and Quartz Quadrant is the song that almost makes me want to say the American soundtrack is just as good as the Japanese one. It is held back, however, by a few songs that I feel just don't compare to the Japanese original. One example is Metallic Madness, where I feel the Japanese version's heart-pumping attitude beats the atmospheric rendition of the American version. Graphically, this game's pretty good for a 16-bit game. It feels like the colors are a little more vibrant than the Genesis titles, and the extra room on the CD allowed for very diverse artwork for each zone. I love the backgrounds especially, they're very clean, even abstract at times. And I'll say now that I'm a geek for Mode 7 type scaling, so of course I love the look of the special stages. The backgrounds look pretty unique too, and it makes me wonder why backgrounds like this haven't made their way into other games. No, Big's Fishing Derby doesn't count. For the most part, the foreground and background are distinct from each other, making it easier to see where you are and what you can interact with. However, in some stages like Collision Chaos and Stardust Speedway, there's just a bit too much flashing lights happening to get a good idea of where to go. Part of that is the level design, yes, but the graphics make a difference too. Now then, let's have a look at the differences between the versions. The Sega CD version is, of course, the original version, but the game appears to be poorly optimized for the hardware. I mean, the game slows down all the time. You could even just be running and the game will skip frames. And don't even think about smoothly going into tunnels or any other automated segment. It also has its fair share of bugs too, as I've demonstrated earlier. The load times are also a bit long compared to the Genesis games. One more thing, the special stages are very choppy because the Sega CD was bottlenecked by having to output its video to the Genesis's video processor. The stages only run at about 20 frames per second compared to the rest of the game's 60. As well, the scaling of the UFOs is basically non-existent. The game uses different sized UFO sprites to represent distance, which can make depth perception when hitting them a challenge. The Windows 95 version is a direct port of the Sega CD version with better overall performance and a few graphical changes here and there. Unfortunately, the sound quality took a hit. The 2011 version, as I stated before, is a complete recreation based on the Retro engine. Christian Whitehead, otherwise known as the Taxman, rebuilt the game from scratch using the existing art and sound assets. The game is now presented in widescreen, has both soundtracks, includes the Sonic 2 Spin Dash, has 60 frames per second special stages with proper sprite scaling for the UFOs, and overall feels much nicer to play. As well, after you beat the game once, you unlock Tails as a playable character, with his ability to fly and everything. Taxman's programming of the game came purely from intense observation of the classic Sonic games and how they worked. I'm not even sure disassembly was used to analyze the game. The primary version of the game is on mobile, as the PC, 360, and PS3 ports were assisted by Blitz software. Anyway, there are some differences between the original and the new version. The time needed to time travel has been lengthened a bit, making some areas where you used to be able to time travel in the Sega CD not viable anymore. A patch was issued to the mobile versions to fix this, but not to the console and PC versions due to costs in the market. The PC version is still one of the best ways to play Sonic CD, and I can't think of any way to make it better. So that about wraps it up. Sonic CD is a bit of an oddball in the series, but I feel people are too harsh on it nowadays. I see people online saying that the exploration, level design, and mechanics of the game are just not fun. And I'm not seeing where that's coming from. CD isn't meant to be played like any other Sonic game. It's an explorative platformer with a character that happens to go fast. And there's time travel. You may think it's tedious, but I love going back and forth in time to see how things change. Sonic CD is on more platforms than ever, and I think everyone should give this game a try. Now can we get a Retro Engine remake of Knuckles Chaotix, please? Hey guys, sorry this video ended up being delayed. I'm just too dang busy, you know? Anyways, if you like this video, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to be notified about my next videos. I'll have an update soon on what my next plan is, so stay tuned. Anyways, see y'all later.